Woo, indeed. Or let me know if you can hear me, and let me know what you can hear and how it looks. I've been trying to mess around with the focus on it, on the camera, and I think I found a comfortable position. I don't know, it's hard to do it with one set of hands in two different locations, you know? Well, you do hear me, I'm so sorry. Oh shit, I just doink. Well, welcome to the bench. Hope you find a comfortable seat for yourself. There's plenty of room. That sounds kind of weird when I say it like that, doesn't it? Hmm. I don't know if you can see all the super fine details on the camera or not. It's hard to tell. All right. Done with the blacks and the grays. Now we're gonna move on to some of the browns. Ow. Let's see. I started by priming him Abaddon Black, and I try to keep my color scheme very simple. Muted dark colors. I love the trench, grim dark kind of aesthetic for these guys. So the base is Abaddon. The thick highlight around the edges for the black, I use Mechanicus Standard Gray. But the Mechanicus Standard Gray also serves as the base color for all the gray, like the undercoat and the pants and everything like that. Then I take Dawnstone and use that as the final edge highlight for the black, and as the thick edge highlight for the Mechanicus Standard Gray. Wait a minute, that's not right. 1, 2, 3. No. What did I just do? Stupid. Is it Eshin Gray? No. I'm tripping myself up. So, black, Mechanicus Standard, and Dawnstone. And for the gray, it starts with Mechanicus into Dawnstone into Administratum Gray. There we go. Oh! The boots are based with Rhinox hide. Just keep these colors out instead of putting them away. I typically don't wash or shade the black and the grays with anything because they're already nice and dark enough, and I don't want to muddle them too closely together. If there's a whole lot going on with the model, I'll put Nuln Oil on it after the base coat color, just to try to create a little bit more contrast just for the gray, but there's no point doing anything for the black. You could start with a lighter black like Corvus black if you wanted to, and you could still then shade that with Nuln Oil and then go into doing your highlights, but I found the difference to be minuscule. On these small infantry models, there isn't enough surface to work with to get the most out of trying to create contrast with your shade paints. I think I'll do a red sash around his waist. I'm going to wash the Rhinox hide on the boots now with Agrax Earthshade. Don't need a whole lot. Just enough to get it all a little wet. And my last color for the highlights on the boots is going to be Morn Thing Brown. Woo. Still a little wet. Usually don't do a thick edge highlight for the browns, or at least not for the boots. There's not a whole lot there to work with in the first place. You're just going to cover up a lot of your base coat, so I very carefully paint all the little folds and everything else. find it helps to steady my hands if you hold your breath after you have a nice exhale. You paint those really fine. The lines and details. You don't want to overdo it too much. A little bit of paint goes a long way. I'm going to do the other brown color now. I like a nice punchier, more kind of yellow one. So we start with the Mornfang brown that we just finished with. Use Acrax Earthshade again to shade this. And then highlight it with Scrag brown. So it's super, super bright and sticks out from the boot. I think I'll do this on his holster. There's quite a good amount of details on it. Oh, don't want that hair. I'm going to do his holster, and he has a little belt on the back too. sure we're careful and don't paint over the black on the cloak or anything like that. If you do, it's no big deal. I use a wet palette, so you still have the black ready to go to clean up any mistakes. We'll do a second coat of the scrag brown, or the Mornfang brown, just to make sure we cover up that dark really well. Make sure we get all the color out of this that we can, because we're going to put Agrax Earthshade over it to darken it again. But we want that because it's going to make the scrag brown look way brighter, which should contrast very nicely against the black of the cloak. We'll probably do the belt clasp in silver and the buckle. There's an underside to the belt too, but it's very hard to see. Okay. Take what's left of the Mornfang and go back and do another coat on the holster. Probably do the same for his scabbard, but he was kind enough to tuck it under his coat, so you can't see it. There is just a little lip of detail that he's grasping with his left hand, but I'm going to do that with, I'll probably do it with gold. Oh, you know what? I did miss a little spot. All right. I hadn't considered my microphones right there. You'll get to listen to me rattle my marbles. Okay. Going with the A cracks to fill in all those little recesses and let it do the shading for us. Just on the brown that we painted. All over it. You don't want to put too much on your brush. If you do, it could run all over the rest of your model, and nobody wants that. Okay. Next is the Scrag Brown. Super, super bright, almost tan. We use this for the edge highlighting on the belt and for painting stress lines in the leather. Usually don't bother to model this kind of stuff, so you can just kind of imagine where whatever leather piece you're painting might be the most bent and warped. And do very, very thin lines where those spots are. You want to make sure you don't have a lot of paint at all on your brush. No, it makes my paint very well. There we go. Got a whole lot of medium and not a whole lot of pigment that first time around. It should lay down nice and bright. There we go. We'll just do very thin edge highlights on all the brown. Or should we tuck into there too? I'm going to leave the symbols and icons and everything on it unpainted. I'll be going over that with either silver or gold. We'll see what it looks like by the end of it. Which one might look a little bit better. Don't want to put too much of one or the other on small models like this. Just go back and do those little stress lines now that it's all edge highlighted. Very tiny. Barely noticeable. They're bright enough, and Scrag Brown is bright enough that you can just make it out if you looked close enough for it. There we go. Turn this light over here. I think we're pretty much done with the leather. We'll do our red now. Whoa. Let's see. Okay. For the red, we'll be using Mephiston as the base. Evil Sun Scarlet for the thick edge highlight. Should be very careful because it's very small. And then I should have it somewhere around here. Troll Slayer Orange. I can't find it, but I am particular towards Fire Dragon Bright. For just the very tippy top edge highlights. I'm going to base coat his sash first. He's got it wrapped around his waist and hanging off of the side just by his sword scabbard. Very carefully tuck in there. This is with the Mephiston red. Make sure we don't accidentally cover up any of the stuff that we painted previously. Very careful. We're going to leave those tassels for later. We're going to do those in yellow. He's got them on his shoulder pads as well. I'm also going to take this red and very carefully do the trim on his robe. Very, very small detail, but an important one. Helps it stick out against the outer black side of the robe and really frames the inside of his chest area. He has the same trim on the collar on his neck. Let's go ahead and paint right over the little pipes that are surrounding his upper torso area. We're just going to paint over those with silver later on. And Leadbelcher doesn't really care what's underneath of it. It covers it all up anyway. very careful. I'm gonna have to come back and go over it a second time, but that's okay. Trying to fall backwards on me. I'm going to put him down and look at a quick reference sheet again. Okay. Let me go back to the black and the grays and paint some of the details on his Commissar cap. That way we can paint the red on top. We try to save stuff like the hat for last, as I find it's one of the better places to put your hand or your finger. You need to hold the model still while you're bringing it upside down. You don't want to rub the paint off. This particular model, I've noticed there's a small lip on the bottom and on the top, so they are separated. So I'll edge highlight that lip. This is not Diablo 2. You are 100% correct about that. This is nothing more than what I've used to fill my time between my Diablo 2 games. I'm going to do that little edge highlight all the way up here at the top of the hat. All right. Trying to get the camera to focus a little bit better. And thank you. I'm trying. I'm trying very hard. Yes. I did say Diablo 2. Crazy, right? Who plays that anymore? We're going to very, very carefully just paint that very top of the lip. And make sure we don't paint over the lower lip that I highlighted with the grays. All right. Yeah, usually I do paint in absolute silence. It keeps me concentrated. I'd love to play music or something to that effect, but I don't want to get sued, so I haven't figured that out. I said it might be okay for me to sit here and quietly contemplate and meditate on what it is that I'm doing while I paint this model, but I don't imagine that's very entertaining. I haven't had the time to sit and determine the legalities behind playing any type of music on stream. But I will be doing that soon. Just wanted to make sure that everything that I'm doing is actually visible and works like I'm hoping it does. Love to put on like some generic like gothic music or something. Working on the Underdesk dog cam. That's at the Midnight Bench, not to be confused with the Crimson Bench. Coming soon to an adult theater near you. All right. We're going to wash all this red with Nuln Oil, if I can find it. I've got a bottle floating around here somewhere. Here we go. But we should start that up soon. Not the Midnight Bench, but the old Diablo 2 hardcore one run. D2 Hype Train. Hype Train in the chat, please, for Diablo 2 hardcore run. Put the Nuln Oil on the Mephiston Red. You don't get it so much on newer models, but these old Forgeworld ones, they really took the time to hand sculpt all these little details, and it is just a shame to not do everything you can to paint in a way that takes advantage of all of them. You'll see so much more depth in the model. Just want to make sure that your shade isn't settling in too big an area. You'll end up with some pretty big dark spots. Kind of even it out. Could you look and see if it's working on YouTube too? I finally got the chance, got the ability to stream it to YouTube as well at the same time, and the little multi-chat function is supposed to be telling me what's being said on both, but I'm not sure. We're done with our Mephiston Red and our Nuln Oil Shade. So now we're going to go and do our highlights with Evil Sun's Scarlet. And I'm just going to do very thin edge highlights with the Evil Sun Scarlet. And I use the Fire Dragon Bright for just the corners, little tippy top edges, the most concentrated bright areas. It's very easy to make the red look cartoony and fake and bad. You don't want that. I don't want that. The Commissar doesn't want that either. But you shouldn't care what the Commissariat says. You guys might not be able to see when I turned it over. Haven't exactly got all my hand positions figured out just yet. I do think I need to rearrange my lights. You guys might be able to see what I'm doing for the most part, but I cannot. I'm almost painting in the dark right now. That's a nice crimson. Wink. Right, then we'll do the brim of the cap. This is with Evil Sun Scarlet over Mephiston Red that has been washed with Nuln Oil. Okay. Fire Dragon Bright is the last color for the reds. And it's just orange. It's straight up orange. Sherbert orange. Very, very bright. So you need to be very careful with this color. You don't want to take too much away from the red. And we'll just do little dots, like up here. Over here. Very tiny. On the collar. The way to visually separate these red edges and lips from the rest of the dark cloak around it. Just do a couple little dots at the top of the cap. Very tiny. Probably almost impossible to see on this camera, but they are there. All right, we've got the browns, the boots, the red is done. The black, the gray. We'll do our yellow next. This is going to be the inside of the cloak, as well as the tassels on his pauldrons. Ugh. My base coat with Averlin Sunset. Shade it with Nona oil, and then highlight it with Arial brown or Arial yellow. Not brown. Hello. So many dark colors. It's starting to feel like Gears of War. I'll pick up and raise my WIP palette too once I'm done with everything, and show everybody everything that's gone into painting this model. You don't think about it while you're doing it, but there's a whole lot of paint, a bunch of different kinds. You don't need all these different kinds. You can mix other colors in with each other to get your desired result. I just find it easiest to use the pre-existing system. So I haven't got to do all that math myself, but I'm going to paint the end of the scarf with the yellow. I want to try to make it look like gold fabric, but we don't want to use gold. I always like it right next to the red. Makes me think of ketchup and mustard. Make sure we get underneath too. Almost look like French fries, doesn't it? What you got there, Commissar? It's holding out on the rest of the unit. They've been eating cornstarch for years. Tried to paint these details on the chest without painting the dark areas beneath. They're pretty raised surfaces, so as long as you hit it from the right angle, hold your brush in a way that it's not going to go into the recesses, but instead almost like just edge highlighting. It won't go into the recesses and will only paint the topmost surfaces. Do the top part next. You don't have to push hard at all. It's got little buttons and rivets all over here too. I'll just hit those with yellow right now. That way I can see them. I'll come back later and I'm going to give them gold buttons. You take your time. There's no need to rush. You'll thank yourself later. I did get a small touch of yellow down on the belt. We'll just get our evil sun scarlet and paint right back over it. Like it never happened. We'll go on to the pauldrons. Do the top part. Got a little ring up here. I'm just going to do the outside of the ring with the yellow. I'm going to do the inside of it with gold. I'm going to come back and do a second coat with the yellow on the larger areas. That way we get a good, nice, decent coverage over the black undercoat. Shouldn't paint yellow over black, but I'm crazy. Oh yeah, I bet you are talking about the figure. Go figure. Figure. I barely know her. So many small little details. Who puts all this crap on these things? Jeez. Yeah, that's a real good shot of what I'm painting, isn't it? Can't see anything. I don't normally paint with this. Most of the time I end up having I'll drill into his boot or some part of the model that you can't see after the fact. Pin it with a paper clip, and then hold that while I'm working on him. All right, I can do that second coat just on the pauldrons. I don't want to overdo it on the all the details in the chest area. Don't want to lose any detail to too much paint. They're very, very, very thin pieces that decorate his chest. Right. Give that just a second to dry. I'm going to check my next color real quick. How's everybody doing? Ooh. Actually, I think I'm going to use the same yellow for the gas mask. I have a darker one, but I think this would look just right. Really bring the model together because you'll have yellow here, the shoulder, and the helmet. Make sure not to get anything back in those eyes, and don't paint over whatever you had going on the cap. You want to try to keep as much paint out of the eyes as you can, because it will make it a nightmare to paint it later. It's going to take a couple of coats of this yellow to make it look pretty. Make sure to get a nice even coat. You might think you're good, but when you go back again, you still find darker spots. There you go. It's okay if we paint over the metal tubing and the front filter of the mask. I'm going to go over that with lead belcher later. Nice little touch on the shoulders and on the French fries on the scarf. There's also a very, very, very tiny, almost a rope that runs across the top of his cap. Very carefully do that in yellow. Missed one little spot. Very careful. Okay. Cut little loops at the end. Our clasped in place. I'm going to catch the edges of that. Ooh. There we go. And onto the other side. Oh. All right. That did not fall into the paint. Thank God. If you're using a fine-tipped brush like I usually do for these very, very small details, you want to make sure you act quickly and don't let the paint dry on the tip, because by the time you've settled in and you go in for your stroke, nothing will come off because it's all dried. Perfect. All right, our yellow should be dry. We're going to shade with the Nuln oil over the mask and the tassels and the french fries. Put his little arm back on. My base here. Ooh, that was a scary little moment. Don't need that. We don't need to put a lot on it. Just enough for it to fill the recesses. With just a little bit of a grimy look. We're going to paint over, and we edge highlight this with Arial yellow anyway. Quite a bit of the yellow that's going to be darkened by the Nuln oil. But we're not going to paint over the recesses. That way the Nuln oil still keeps it nice and dark down there. Almost forgot the french fries. There we go. We'll do the mask. Make sure not to get the Nuln oil into the eye holes. And you'll notice, if you paint this ever in your life, that there's a ribbed texture on this. It's very fine, but you want to make sure you don't put too much of your wash on it, or you will cover it right up. Just kind of keep teasing it. Take it off, put it back on, take it off, put it back on, until you can find a little happy medium. And let that dry for a moment. Get a drink of water. Get up and walk around for a second. Ugh. Should always take breaks. I've been painting for 2 hours now. And we're looking to be on track to be done probably before 8 o'clock. So that's nice. It's right in the little window I was aiming for. Okay. I think we're good to go. We're looking pretty dry, so get some of my Uriel yellow. Don't need a lot, just a little. All right, we'll do the French fries. Just want to do the ends, really. Make sure we don't paint into those recesses. And I use the same technique you would for the chest. All these raised surfaces, very easy to catch with the edge of your brush. You don't want to push down on it, because if you do, then you'll just shove all the paint out of it and make a mess on your model. And then we'll just do an edge highlight on the top. Can't forget to do the other arm. Don't let your paint dry on your brush. Right. For the mask, just going to paint on the inside of the seam. For one line right down the ridge. And that's it. Just a little bit of an edge highlight on the little rope on the hat. Ooh. And then just a tad chest. Just kind of keep it in the middle. All right. The yellow is finished. I think it's time for the metallics. Yeah. We'll start with the silvers. Do lead belcher first. This is going to go on the sword. And on some details. As well as the canister around the back and the breathing apparatus. Actually, you know what? I'm getting ahead of myself. We're not going to do that. Let's do your metallics last. You'll soil the your paint cup. You don't want flakes floating around in the water you're trying to wash your brush with. So we'll do the eyes. I like a nice darker red for the eyes and go into a really bright orange again. So this is kind of like the previous red recipe, but instead of Mephiston, we start with corn red. Then we'll go into Evil Sun Scarlet, and then Fire Dragon Bright, and then finally do a little dot of White Scar on opposite ends of the lens. Very, very small space to work with. But we do the eyes first because we don't have to go back and clean up the silver after the fact. So we're free to paint over where the silver would have gone, as they do have a very small, thin silver ring around their goggles and their eye lenses. It is a small detail, but it is an important one. Try to come at it at a bit of an angle. You know, this is so tiny. I don't know if I'm going to bother to go through all the highlighting details for now. That's what I will do in the future. But at least for him, his Commissar cap is pulled over quite far. You can barely see it. I can barely paint it. I already have a lot of the colors still on the palette, so I'm going to take the Evil Sun Scarlet. blow on it a little, let it dry. Of course, if you don't want to stay for the whole thing, I'm going to be taking a photo of it at some point after the fact, and I'll be posting it on the Instagram and Facebook, so you can see what it looks like in the end. Not going to have time to do the base and the whole 9 yards, but at the very least the model itself will be finished. Just need the smallest little dot. Teensy weensy little poke. And then finally is the Fire Dragon Bright. I'm just going to give it the, there you go, tiniest little dab. Just enough to accent. You guys really cannot see this, but it's there, trust me. I don't normally put this type of effort into painting infantrymen like this, but I'm a particular fan of the Commissar of Krieg. So I try to put in a little bit of extra effort. Some finer details. We can go back to our silver now. And Leadbelcher typically lays on pretty thick, but it never hurts to do another 2 thin coats. Man, somebody really popular said that, I think. Do the blade. We're going to paint the little engine power pack thing on the back too, whatever it's supposed to be, with the Leadbelcher, but later on we'll come over it with bronze. That way it's differentiable from the blade. And it is a power sword, so it's got some kind of crazy electrical anti thing field around it, so probably going to try to do some power sword stuff on it, little lightning bolts, energy pulses, you know, cool stuff like that. I'm not very practiced in it, but no better time than the present. If you don't do it now, when will you do it? I'll also paint the hilt with the silver too. We'll be going over that with gold later on, as well as the hand guard. But doing it with the silver just makes it easier to paint metallics over top of it, because then the silver lays down really well. It gives you that metallic, flaky sheen and brightness underneath. The gold's going to do that too, but it takes quite a few coats of that gold to keep that shine to it. Whereas if you just base it with silver first, your Leadbelcher, or whatever silver you're using, takes advantage of the pre-existing color. The gold doesn't have to try so hard. The Leadbelcher is already doing a lot of the work for it. That way all it's really doing is adding a little bit more shine to it with the metallic flakes that are still in the gold, but kind of tinting over top of the silver with the yellow that's used in the gold pigmentation. All right, we got the power sword do a second coat of that on all of this too. But while that is drying, come here and we'll get the mask. Make sure you get the underside. You don't really have to, especially if it's prime black. You can just kind of say, you know, it's shaded underneath. You can't really see it anyway. You won't see it from the table, at least. But I know people turn them upside down. I know they look. So I make it a point to do so. I did get a little bit of silver on one of the other pieces. That's okay. Just go back and retouch it up. Still have all my paints on my palette. It's going just a little bit too fast. You know, they say haste makes waste. All right. Got a little bit more to do underneath. Try and move just a little faster. Back here and the piece isn't going to fall off, and do another coat of the silver really quick over the power sword when we still have it wet on the brush. Go back over the handrail, get the back of the engine real good. There we go. Okay. I do have some belts and buckles and little doodads. I'll get my smaller brush out for these. I'm not going to bother painting the islands with lead belcher. I'm just going to skip to my highlight color for that because they're such small details. I'll be doing that with Stormhost Silver. But for right now, we're still using lead belcher. I think I'll do the little trim on the holster with silver. I'll just come back and do that with lead belcher as well. Also, or I'm sorry, Stormhost Silver. We'll do the little detailing on the end of it too with lead belcher. We're gonna make that gold. Don't forget the underside. All right. Ooh, I'm hungry. See what else we got going on here. We do have the Aquila up top. We'll do that with silver too. Paint that gold. Some very fine details up here in some very small spaces, so take my time and be very careful. Make sure I'm painting it at an angle I'm comfortable with. All right. I'm just so used to looking at these small things. I don't wear anything while I'm doing it. I do have a magnifying thing somewhere. One of these. I usually use that for painting words and small text. Some of these models have seals or like pieces of scripture and whatnot that are hanging from weapons, and they're like marks of honor for some people, and they most of the time have little words and prayers and such written on it. So I mean, I don't actually write the word. That would be impossible. It'd have to be, I don't know, a machine. But I get really, really close. From a distance, it's almost discernible. You would think that they're words, or at least they create enough of an illusion to look like they are words. All right, we got a belt loop in the back. I do that in silver. I was gonna do the buckle in gold, but so gaudy. And the belt's clasp. Usually made out of the same material that the belt is, but It's not very visually appealing, so I'm going to do that in silver too. There you go. Right. I think we are done with the silver base coat to the lead belcher, so we're going to take our Nuln oil. And we are going to go over the parts that we do not want to be gold. It's looking pretty good, if I say so. And we'll go over the power sword. Don't want to lay it on too heavy. We don't need to. We're going to leave the handguard silver, and we're not going to put the Nuln oil on it because we are going to paint that gold. And we'll get it into the coils on the respirator. Hold on, I gotta try to remember to hold it closer to the camera. Hope it's in focus. Can't really tell. I'll have to clean up some of the stuff in the background and maybe reposition it. That way I can turn the autofocus on. I can pull it away and bring it back in. I'm trying to show details. Make sure we fill in all the ridges. Don't neglect the underside. And we'll do just a tad bit on the holster. Did want to keep that silver at the bottom. I like to, at least on holsters and stuff like that, where the silver is attached to something else, I like to go just a little bit over the edge of it to help visually differentiate the silver from something like the leather. You can see it right here if the camera focuses on it. Well, they do have plenty of guides and other things that you can follow. I used to follow a lot of them, but after seeing how they paint a lot of the colors and taking the time to learn color theory and everything of that sort, there's so much that goes into it. This is just something I've put together myself. It does use some commonly used recipes for different colors, but I like this particular combination of all of them. So there's only so many ways to paint red, but it's how you use that red with everything else that is what's going to make it look good and differentiate it from everything else. But I did take the time on some test models to just kind of throw a bunch of colors together for this particular paint scheme that I paint for my regiment, or my Death Corps models at least. I do have notes, obviously, of what my my painting recipes are in case I need to look them up later. Or if I don't touch these guys for a very long time for whatever reason, and I need to come back later, or somebody else asks me how I painted them, then I can give them the recipe so they can do exactly what I did. All right, we shaded the silver, and we're going to edge highlight it. Not completely, but just the tippy tops of everything where light would strike it. We want to make it look just a little bit reflective. But if you overdo it with your bright metallics, you can quickly lose the luster of everything else that you have going on. Since my paint bottle's dried at the tip, so I've got to poke in. Woo! I'm sorry if I don't immediately look up and respond to whatever you might be saying. I try to look up when I take a break in painting in between strokes. Okay. Just going to run it along the edge of the blade. On the back too. And very, very carefully along the inside of the blade on the raised surface that runs into the sheath. We'll be coming back to that later. That's going to be where the energy comes from for the power sword. Do the edges down here on the holster. There appears to be a small little gem on here I just noticed. So I'm going to put the Stormhull silver on that right now. Make it really nice and bright. I'll take one of my technical colors. I got to decide which one. Maybe a nice emerald green. And I'll do that in emerald. A little bit of a visual pop. One totally unique color from the rest of the model. Almost like his own personal touch. Maybe he likes the color green. Just a little dab up here. And very, very carefully paint some little dots along the ribs of the respirator. Don't push down too hard. You don't want to push the paint out of the brush and into the coils. Again, it helps to hit it from an angle where you're painting with the side. Imagine you're edge highlighting all of those little coils, but you can kind of do it all at the same time. We'll go along the outside of this too, and the inside. Same thing on the other side. And then for this little curved tube, we'll just kind of let the light hit the model for a second and see where it lays. And then we'll just paint along the light. There we go. A little dab on the belt buckle too. A little dink. Little small little twinkle. All right. Just for a little bit of added detail too, there's a few spots inside of these areas. I did miss this little bar. I'm going to do that in silver because we're doing it in gold. And there's almost like a little something or other tucked inside. I'll do that silver. Can't really tell what it is. A little dark. Right. We're done with the silver. Or no, you know what? One little spot right here. I am going to keep the butt of the power sword silver, so let's do that little dab. And just a touch of the storm host silver on those small details tucked into the pauldrons. Just a little bit. Right. I'll keep leaving details out. I'm going to touch silver onto the buttons on the chest too. That way when we do the gold on it, we don't have to do a whole bunch of coats. And also going to do the same thing on the gigantic necklace that I didn't realize was around his neck. As a massive symbol of the Imperium, which I will do in gold, so I actually think I'm going to leave these buttons silver. Be very careful. Don't want to paint over the yellow. All right. Now on to the necklace. Very hard to see what's going on in there. There we go. What a fun little detail. I love little accents like this. These are the kinds of things you don't find on a lot of the models nowadays. You might have gotten a couple of these, but not the combination that they used to give you way back in the day. I suppose that's why it was Forgeworld and about 3 times the price. All right. Give it a once over. I am going to do the little dots that seem to be coiling the helmet rope in gold. Or actually, no, we'll keep those silver because the Aquila is going to be gold. I'm not going to wash them because the details are so tiny, but I will go and do a small dot of storm host on those too. Like I said, so many small details. It's always good to pull the model away and look at it every now and then and make sure you're still on the right track. And if a color is going to look good on it or not. You might find yourself an hour or so deep into your paint job and realize you don't like something about it. Better to fix it as soon as you can. Another spot of silver where the sheath is. Just going to try to paint the rim of it. We want to leave the inside of it black. All right. Let's set them down. We'll get our gold. Going to use Retributor gold, Retributor armor. Give her a nice shake. Make sure none of that pigment's sitting at the bottom of the barrel. There we go. Always wipe the tip. Get the brush wet. Load it up, but not too much. You can and will lose detail if you put a whole bunch of gold on it. Do not be afraid to do multiple layers, multiple coats of the gold. Very, very thin coats. You want to. You do not want them thick at all. The more incredibly thin coats of gold that you do, the better it is going to look. That is why I do it with silver first. Like, we're basically already done with the gold on the necklace because of the silver underneath. But I like to make sure I get a real nice solid gold color, so I'll do one more coat, one or two more coats, we'll see. Paint the handguard now. There we go. I'm usually going to try to leave some of the silver in the recesses of the handguard. Give it just a little bit more of an accent. Add some more visual interest to an already visually interesting model. For those who don't paint miniatures and wonder why I spend so much time doing these, or how I could spend so much time on a single model. I do so because I only want to paint it once. I do not want to paint this again. So I will do it one time and one time only, but I'm going to do my best to make it look very good. That way, one time I did paint it, I know that it looks good. I don't have to go back and do it again. Very tricky underside here. There we go. I don't know if you can see the silver underneath and little slots and the handguard. We'll come up here and do the bars on the pauldrons with Retributor armor. Oh, thank you for following. I'll have to adjust the screen a little better so I can actually make out who that was. I'll look it up later. Whew. The last little gold detail to paint is the Aquila on the helmet. Very thin coats of gold. The silver is what's giving it so much of its shine right now. Once I get this last bit painted, I will go back through it all again and do another coat of the gold. As by the time I'm done with this, the previous coat should be dry. There we go. We'll go back to the necklace. Back to the handguard. Now that we're doing the second coat, we're really getting the nice gold color that we want. Now it's looking like real, actual metallic gold. And we haven't even shaded it yet, or put the edge highlight color on either. That may look even better. Put your sunglasses on. If I had any other gold details sneaking around anywhere. Just go right back to put another coat on the Aquila of Imperatus. All right. Satisfied with a gold base coat. I like to wash Reichland Flesh Shade over it. It gives it a nice kind of rose gold kind of color to it. It'll darken it up a little bit, but that's okay. Whew. Shake that baby up. This is next. Now we still want to keep this very thin. We just want it to go into the recesses and just tint the gold to give it more of a flesh-ish, almost kind of fleshy tone. Do not really want it to sit anywhere, and at least for the hilt, I try not to let it run into the recesses. Or you know what, screw it, I'm just going to let it run to the recesses. Why not? You'll still see the silver underneath. Happy accidents, you know? All right. Get that necklace. do you kill a... Be very careful. There's a skull up here. It's very small. But you want to make sure your wash does not sit and settle into the eyes. And fill it in. Those little eye sockets are important. All right. That's got this nice candid gold. Oh, that's weird. There's like a blurry spot in the chat. I don't know what that means. I can't read that. Must be these old eyes. Spend too much time looking at small things. I can't imagine the bigger picture. Ugh. Next is Liberator, very small. Just going to edge highlight the raised surfaces and going to go back over the little inlay detail on the holster. No, I haven't painted the helmet, but I have painted a miniature. So does that count? A Master Chief miniature? It's pretty fun, actually. And just very carefully run across the edge here. You don't want to paint over too much of that shade that we just put down. This Liberator gold is much more like a silver than it is a gold, and it will paint right over the gold. So you want it to be very, very stingy with its application. Okay. Whew. We'll go back to the Stormhost Silver now. And that is the final edge highlight for the final dot highlight for the gold. So only at the peaks. Very, very tiny dots. At the most extreme edges. Maybe a twinkle. And we'll go back to the eyes and paint that small little detail around the eyes. Very thin ring. You need very little to paint it. Right. Give it a once over. Actually going to do the Liberator Gold on the holster. A little trim. There we go. Very tiny, but it's there. Do the gold over the power sword too. Well, like I said, all kinds of little pieces. Tiny little details, easy to forget. Just smudged over the red by accident too, so dry it up real quick. And then go back in and touch it back up with a little dot of red. There you go. Thank you very much. I do everything I can to try to be as precise as I can. People tell me I paint very cleanly. I just like coloring in the lines. Okay. What is left? I feel like I'm missing something. Yep. I'm going to do a bronze for the, ooh, come on. Try to loosen up the ball. There it is. Do a bronze for the engine on the back, or power source, whatever you want to call it. These old Citadel paint pots make the audio sound really bad. Ugh. I'll be using Gehenna's Gold. This bit of bronze on the back. This is a very thick paint, so if you do paint with it, be careful. You do not need a lot. Just like Retributor armor, multiple thin coats is best. I do use an airbrush occasionally, usually done on smaller stuff like this. If I end up doing OSL or anything and I want to get really crazy with it, then usually bust out the airbrush for that. But here lately I've been trying to get better at painting it by hand with the paintbrush. It's not impossible. It may not look as good either, but you can do it if you're determined enough. Very tiny details back here, kind of hard to see. Probably should have pinned this next time. Missed just a little spot. This paint's very thick. Doesn't really want to work its way into any of the recesses or details. All right. I do normally paint the actual grip of the swords too. The problem is it's so tiny and so recessed inside all that detail, there's no way I can paint it without covering up everything else. I've got one metallic color left to do, and it is for the steel plates on his wrists. Two very small little plates that are going to have to need a whole another set of colors. So give me 1 second. I'm going to get up and look at what I use for that. This is usually for the rest of the Krieg armor that I paint. It's a nice little mix of some silvers. I base it with Iron Hand steel. Do not need a lot for this. It's so funny. It literally is just going to be these two small little squares. A whole different paint scheme for two small squares. But it's the little things, you know? It's the little things. Because he'll be on the table next to a bunch of guys who are all going to be wearing armor that do have this this particular silver scheme. And thanks for following whoever that was. I really do need to change that. I cannot read it at all from this far away. It's going to sneak right in here. Get what can be seen of the hand that is inside of the hilt. Very tiny detail. It's shaded with Agrax Earthshade. Or wait, you know what? I should say the little catchphrase, shouldn't I? Thank you for joining me on the Crimson Bench. Take a seat. There's plenty of room. Lots of room, actually. Big bench. Don't be fooled by the picture. Picture's a lie. Logo's a lie. Huge bench. And we don't want to drown it. We just want to tint it. We're going to dirty it up just a little bit. Don't want to leave a big old blob of it on there. If you do, I'll set it more towards the middle, but I really don't want to do that. There we go. That's tasteful. A tasteful wash. Just give it just a tinge of brown. If I didn't shake all the time. My hands shake so that my miniatures can look good. Next is Black Templar. I'll be doing a second shade with Black Templar, but I'll be thinning it down quite a bit. It is a contrast paint, so it's already kind of pre-thinned for you. Oh well. But it is still not thin enough. I do not want it to completely darken out everything that I just did. I just wanted to add a little bit of flavor to it, so I'm going to get some of it out and put it on my wet palette. Probably end up at some point getting a second camera and figuring out how to rig that up so you can see the wet palette as well. But right now is not that time. Okay. It's very thin. Very thin. I'm going to paint that over this little shoulder, this little hand pads. Barely noticeable. It is not the layer of the paint that counts. It is the combination of all of them. After Black Templar is an edge highlight. And any scratching or anything like that you want to do, especially if you're doing the larger armor pieces, like I like to do it on the shoulder pads and some of the helmets. Make it look like they got a little wing on them, you know. Almost got hit. Had a round bounce off. I'm going to do that with Stormhost Silver. So, very carefully just paint along the edges. And this is his strong hand, so I'm just going to do just a couple little dashes here. Make it look like it's gotten marred up a little bit. We are just about done. We're in the home stretch. I think I'm done with them now. I just have to do I can't even think. I need to talk right now. What is it called when you cover it in a clear coat? I'm going to varnish it now. On second thought, not yet. I got a power sword to do. So, we'll look up a quick reference photo of power swords real quick. I kind of like the GW painting style of doing them. It's pretty hard to do. I'm not particularly good at it, but there's only one way to get better. All right. I get a white. I like to use Vallejo's Game Color Dead White. They're all pretty much the same. All white paints for the most part use the exact same pigmentation. It just depends on one company might have a better method of refining the pigmentation and making it thinner and smaller. You might even consider using inks for your whites instead of acrylics. Do not need a bunch, just a very little. I'm going to use this white to paint in what I will be washing with blue after the fact. It'll be the brightest source where all of the energy will be coming through the blade. So I'm actually going to pick him up and hold him there like that. That way I can see everything. And very carefully down that center. It's very small. Do the same thing on the other side. Normally there's kind of like a little power node, you know, kind of looks like a wire running up the blade and a small little dot that you would imagine the energy would be coming from, but they didn't do that on this. Paint it all the way to the end of the blade because it's going to be in the sheath. I want it to almost look like, ooh, let's slow it down a little bit. Almost look like it's exploding with power as he's pulling it out. It would help if I hold it so you guys could see it. Now that white is there, to find just the right blue for it. So I have quite a few different ones, but it's my favorite color. There's only a couple that I really like using. Is my temple card? That's my temple card. Thank you. It's past 8 o'clock, but you know what? That's fine. We're so close. So close to done. Just gonna finish it. It's the last detail left, and I get to glue his arm on, and then just paint a bunch of varnish on him, and that's it. We'll come back and do the basing later. So I'll do the Sotek green first. I'm going to thin it down so it just tints the area. I'm going to do that over the white and the surrounding area. And then we'll go back and we'll do the Baharoth blue on just the most intense spots. And then we'll come back with the white again and paint the white very, very small from where we want it to look like the real power is coming from. Oof, haven't had to use this paint in a while. Make sure we're nice and thin. I'm just going to paint along this area. Make sure you get some along the sides too. Don't forget the other side. Done that before. Thought I was done. And we'll just run this along the edge of the blade too, where it'll be coming out of the sheath. Thin it down just a little bit more. Don't want to cover up the silver too much. I'm going to do the occasional little lightning bolt. I want them to branch off of each other and away from the main energy source. There's really no particular way to do it. Just try to imagine how electricity would course through something. All right. Now it's the Sotek. Now we'll do the Baharoff blue. Don't need a lot. Only need a little. Make sure you got it nice and thin on your brush. Now we're going to very carefully paint the edge of that power source towards the front. But we don't want to cover up the shaded recess inside of the blade. Don't forget the other side. And we'll do the edge too. Really make it look like it's brimming with energy. And then we'll make sure we got it real nice and thin. And we're going to very carefully paint even smaller lightning bolts within the ones we painted previously. Very carefully. Less is more. Very, very tiny details. And last but not least, and probably most important, is the white at the very end. You want to take that, thin it down quite a bit at first. Too thin. There we go, that looks good. So it kind of does this number right here. You can barely see it. Actually, that's still too thin. Here we go. Just like that. And very, very carefully towards the front in that recessed area. I don't think I could find a good way to show you guys. Paint it along the inside because we want to bring that brightness back. And then we'll get pure white. Don't need to dilute it too much. Make sure you got a really nice point. Look for those lightning bolts. And just do the very smallest little dots, little lines in the centermost portion of those lightning bolts. They all meet and convene. Maybe a little bit on the edge of the blade too. Really make it look like you don't want to touch that thing. And we can do the same thing over here where the blade gets pulled from the sheath. Just do the edge highlight of that white. Very, very thin edge highlight. Looking pretty good. Considering I don't do this very often, I think I did pretty good. Thank you. It is a totally awesome Krieg Commissar. All right. I think we nailed the power sword as good as it's going to get. So we'll glue it in place. We'll bust it out and build it. I like to use a satin varnish. There's 3 different ones for the most part. You have the matte varnish that's going to bring all your colors and everything down, kind of flatten the model out. It's great for some textures, clothing, you know. Usually want your metallics to be nice and bright, so you might put a gloss varnish on those, but it can sometimes start to look a little too tacky and almost plastic with gloss varnish, especially if you put too much on it. But satin is the in-between. Satin lets your metallic stay lustrous. Not too much, but just a little lustrous, and doesn't brighten up all of your matte tones too much. So maybe 2 or 3 coats, especially if you're going to handle the model a lot. You can put satin varnish on it. I use Vallejo's. It's a big bottle. Some people airbrush this. I mean, there's rattle cans that you can get too, but when it comes to this small infantry single models, I like to just paint it on by hand. That way I can control it. I don't have to worry about anything happening to the model either. And sometimes you can get dust particles or hairs, or if you don't airbrush or spray it right, you can end up with frosting on your miniature. And that is horrible. Oh, there's Cadians in my army too, don't you worry. Everybody's equally as important. All is equal in the eyes of the Emperor. Your sacrifice is just as pointless as the man beside you, regardless of what planet it is you come from. I'll probably be painting some Krieger or some Cadians in the future here too. Actually, God, I want to say maybe 3/4 of the way through a set of 20 shock troopers, because I too also picked up the combat patrol that you mentioned, and I don't know, I lost steam. There's so many of them. You can only paint the same model so many times over and over again before you stop. Actually, I think I had to play them with them in a tournament and didn't have time to finish them, so they got as good as they were going to get. I'll have to come back to them maybe when I'm done with all my Krieg. We'll see. This is the satin varnish. You can just kind of put it on. I thin it down a little bit. It might look like I'm absolutely trashing it, but the satin varnish does, it dries clear. Don't want to put it on too thick, but you don't want to water it down too much either. You want it to rest on the model, but also kind of settle into some of the details. That kind of depends on your own personal preference. I'm going to get my big brush for this. And what you're trying to achieve, if you really want to get into all the little details, all the nitty-gritty, even parts that may not even be visible by the time you're done painting and putting it all together, then do it in parts. We call that painting in sub-assemblies. In fact, I've noticed now some of the instructional booklets for assembly instructions actually tell you to paint certain things before you assemble them. I think they put a little brush icon next to it to show that you should probably paint it before you glue it. Because there's definitely some pieces, even on the newer stuff, they managed to get away from it for the most part, but older models and some of the new stuff is still designed in such a way that, say you're doing Space Marines and you're trying to paint a guy that's got a bolter, his bolter might cross over the front of his chest. And if you glue that on, it makes an absolute nightmare of trying to paint any of the detail that he might have on his chest. Like this Commissar right here, for example. He's drawing a power sword across his chest out of his sheath. If I'd have glued that on first, I'd be spending this entire time trying to paint around his power sword. And that would just be horrible. Probably wouldn't even try to do it. It would just look awful on the inside of the model. He'd have a bare, unpainted chest. But by doing it in sub-assemblies and keeping the power sword arms separate from the model, I'm very capable of reaching it. All those details. You like that? Poking the brush at the camera? I'm so sorry, I don't mean to poke you in the eye. I'll look at the chat here in just a second. You gotta be a little quick with this. Don't want it to dry and pool into any recesses. Also think he's trying to fight me and fall off his base right now. It's very rude. It is possible to unglue your models, but it depends on the glue that you use. So there are many different types of adhesive. You have PVA glue, Mod Podge, Elmer's glue, whatever. I guess it depends on what country you hail from. That is very temporary. It will not hold your models together very well. You can expect things to fall apart, and it's very hard to get anything to stick with it without using a decent amount of it. So I wouldn't suggest PVA glue. So your other two options are you have plastic glue. Plastic glue is very permanent. It's got acetone in it for the most part. It is just acetone, so it'll actually melt. It'll break down the plastic and melts it into each other. So those are not coming apart. You will have to break them or cut them. You have to cut them apart. So I suggest just normal super glue, CA glue. I like to use Gorilla Glue's gel, as I find it gives me just enough time to work anything into position, or if I glue something poorly, I can remove it and wipe it clean. But it will bond to your skin like immediately, so don't get any on your fingers. And you don't need a lot of it either. You need very little of the Gorilla Glue or any CA glue. Less is better. Also turn on a fan when you use it, and keep it away from any other plastic or acrylic pieces, because some of them do off gas as part of their curing process, and the gas that it releases will destroy it. It'll give it a really nice, weird, powdery texture. The model will be fine, but the acrylics nearby will not be okay. Even some desk surfaces and whatnot will be ruined by that as well. Found that out the hard way. And if you need to separate super glue take the model, get it wet, put it in the freezer. Make sure the seam that you're trying to separate is nice and wet. And the cold and the freezing, put it in there for a couple of days. It'll actually weaken the bond of the CA glue. So as soon as you take it out of the freezer and you're very gentle with it, you don't want to break the model, obviously. You can separate the pieces out of the freezer. And you know what? That actually looks pretty good. So it takes a little bit for the varnish to dry. But it's all right. Or you know what? If you're super temporary, you'll notice I've got them blue tacked to the base. I've had to use that before in desperate circumstances for some emergency tournaments and events and games before. And it's really great for painting because you can just put a little dab of blue tack on this and hold it in place. This is not the base he's supposed to be going on, so just blue tacked him on it to hold him there. Blue tack, poster tack, sticky tack, stuff usually used for sticking things on walls. Works really great for these guys. Vehicles, anything that doesn't have to bear an awful lot of weight. So I do keep a miniature hair dryer for doing this kind of stuff. No, not like miniature size mini, but a portable hair dryer. Hopefully it's not too loud. I'm going to hit it up real quick, just enough to kind of hasten this up a little bit. I don't know, you guys tell me, does it pick up? Does it pick it up? Is it loud? Just didn't want to wait forever for the varnish to work. Okay. For magnetizing, you can magnetize everything if you're crazy enough. I've got actually, let me get one of them real quick. All of my infantrymen are all magnetized. Here's one of my guardsmen. His arms are completely magnetized. He's on the kill team that I play with occasionally. So I placed magnets in each of his arms. I've also drilled a small hole in his wrist. I'll put a pin in it at some point, but I haven't had to. Put a hole in the hand of the gun too. So through a combination of very small magnets and pins, you can actually do a lot for making your guardsmen modular and kind of future-proof them for the rest of the game. Kill team is interesting. I prefer Big 40K, as I call it, when kill team's brought up. It's not that it's not fun. I do enjoy it, but as with any game, and I think Kill Team might suffer more so about this because there's not as many teams as there are factions and variable builds in Big 40K. It's very easy to get broken very fast. The release schedule is not as fast as Big 40K, obviously, but usually the newest and latest team, or if they drop two of them at the same time, one of them is going to be like pretty hysterically busted. But if you're just talking about the actual gameplay of it, it's a pretty good time. It's pretty sharp. It's like a mix of so if you're only familiar with Big 40K, your unit that you would be driving around and controlling, like a set of 10 guys, you'd have multiples of those. So you can have 50, 60 guardsmen, 6 units of 10, But for kill team, you're just going to play with one single set of 10 of those guys. So instead of moving big blobs of dudes, you're just moving one dude individually and separately at a time, using cover and going back and forth with your opponent and trying to take advantage of height and other situations in the board space to get better shots and better complete objectives versus each other. It can be very competitive. It's very tight. Mistakes, if you're playing, depending on who you're playing with. If you go to a tournament or anything like that, mistakes are usually punished incredibly fiercely. You will know when you mess up, and it can make for some pretty tight games at the same time too. It's a totally different beast. Far enough apart from each other that I know people who specifically only play Kill Team, and they make their whole hobby about it, which is fine, because there's people who do the opposite for big 40K as well. There's more than enough there to get your hobby's worth out of it. And it's a little more affordable because you're just having to buy one box as opposed to building an entire army, but it just doesn't capture the same feeling as having an entire battlefield. And you can't have tanks in it. What's the good in that? I'll do one more coat of this varnish. And then once that's good and dry, I'll glue his arm on. Show him off one more time, and then that will be the end. I still have to eat dinner. Yeah, tell me about it. I love me tanks. Tanks is good. Simple as. I have a lot of fun painting those too. I like to do, I have a digital camouflage pattern that I paint on the broadsides of the tanks. I still maintain the same dark black and light gray scheme for them too, so when they're on the board with all the infantry, they all look really good next to each other. Those are also totally magnetized, and I'll probably be working on it on stream too. I just recently got my hands on the old Mars Alpha Pattern Forgeworld variants of them too to fit the rest of the Krieg theme. They've got big filtration systems on the back and trench rail skis. Oh, that startled me. Hold on for the combat patrol box, from what I understand. Specifically for the combat patrol, they are pre-built. It's supposed to be like a more fair introduction to big 40K. I mean, you can pretty much put whatever you want on the model, because if you're playing the combat patrol, you know, what are you going to do? You're going to lie to somebody? They can just look at it, look at the combat patrol, and know that that's what you have to use. But if you really want to, you could just magnetize it, or do whatever you want. But that is how the combat patrol works. It used to be, in times gone by, all it meant was you were playing like a 500-point game or something like that, but they tried to spice it up a little bit and make it a little bit more fair and equal by giving people pre-built lists. Makes it a lot simpler for somebody new like you to go and buy a combat patrol box, put it together, and you're following the instructions and building it to the rules, and you can just go right to the store and play a combat patrol game versus somebody. Whereas most people who've been playing for a long time probably already have all those models anyway, so they'd be more than capable of playing against whatever it is that you have going on. You do get some options in the combat patrol, depending on which one it is that you have. I don't think the guard ones are flexible model-wise, but I know the custodians, for example, there's way more than enough models in the custodian box, but before you start your game, you have the choice of picking between 2 or 3 different units within the box set. So you end up not using the whole box, but you do have the option of picking different things. That at least adds a little bit more interest to it, but it's also a box with only 3 units in it, so you don't get a lot out of a custodian combat patrol, but you don't need a lot. Those guys are, well, they are the Emperor's, shouldn't say the finest, we know who that is, but the Emperor's favorite. And they show that. They're very good at showing that. Ooh, I really got that on there. Kind of blow on it and get the bubbles to go away. Make sure we get the pauldrons, put a little bit of extra on that in the hat. Try to think of anywhere I'm going to hold the model from. Make sure I get a real nice coat on it, or you'll be looking at the model later and find out you ended up scraping some paint off. And who wants that? All right. Oh yeah, totally. You'll find that it's the case for a lot of things. Usually if you read any Space Marine book, they're the best things ever made. They just mow people down and tear through them, but if you read a custodian book, they tear through Space Marines and mow them down like they're absolutely nothing. But then you might find a Space Marine book where they kill a custodian in it, and then you really don't know what's going on anymore, and nothing makes any sense. But that's okay. It just depends on the author that's writing it, and whatever it is that Games Workshop's trying to sell at that given point in time. Ooh, that looks really nice. I'm really happy about that, actually. I'm gonna hit this with the dryer just a little bit more so I can glue him on and call it a night. So you got me for just a little bit longer. I'm starving. I'm withering away here. And oh yeah, if you read any of the books or any of the lore about any of the weapons, everything sounds so much more fantastic than is actually represented on the tabletop. But it's as much of a balance thing as it is anything else. Of course, any guardsman with a plasma gun or whatever could very easily just destroy Space Marines for days. Like, you might think something like a volcano lance would easily obliterate a whole entire group of people, but that wouldn't be very fair, would it? There we go. Yeah, plasma body Space Marines. It does still do that on the tabletop, too, so if you're playing against a bunch of Space Marine players, Chaos Space Marine players, anything like that, bring your plasma guns. They'll save your life. All right. We're looking pretty good here, nice and dry, so I'm going to get all the blue tack off of this guy. Thanks, Furious John. Follow me. You can join us again next time on the Crimson Bench. We'll save a seat for you. Oh yeah, Melta? Melta's very scary. They did tone it down a little bit. They toned plasma down too with this latest edition, but they kind of needed it. It made sense to do so. It'll look a little something like this. I'll need to take the gloves off to actually glue it together with some finesse and take a nice little photo of them. But that is it for me. I'm gonna put all this stuff away, clean up my mess, and go find something to eat. I'll read everything here in just a second, but not this Sunday, but next Sunday. I think I'll have to check my schedule. I'll be playing 40K live. I've got a whole table and camera and everything here set up for that. I just got done doing that last Sunday as a little bit of a test to make sure that everything worked. Sometimes it's a little narrative and a little fun, a little casual, maybe some smaller games. Other times it's competitive builds. I like to go to some of the tournaments and other things around here, so I try to keep sharp. I invite some friends over who are like-minded, and we play games here on the Crimson Bench. Kill Team might be something that's done eventually at some point, but that requires a little bit of a different setup, and I haven't exactly figured that part out yet, so we will get there. But he got any more questions or anything like that? Oh yeah, as for this guy, when I do glue him together, I'm going to go and take a nice fancy picture of him. So if you'd like to see that, then and then actually look good and nice and high resolution and whatnot, that will be on the Instagram, which should be down in the information below if I set it up correctly. There's not a whole lot there right now, but that's because I just started. But there will be plenty more to come. I'll be doing this again next Wednesday, painting more, or maybe this Sunday. If I don't have time for a game, I'll just do some painting instead. We'll see. But make sure you follow if you haven't already. I don't know. I have no idea how many people are watching, actually. And I don't care. And you'll be able to catch the next one. I'll see you all. I'll see you all next time. Thanks for hanging out and talking to me while I do my painting. Have a wonderful night.